headlines globally over brutal killings and treatments on persons with albinism, with a recent case of a young boy who was allegedly chopped off his hand by his father. It is a country where being albino can be a death sentence, where persons with albinism are viewed as a source of wealth, be it for luck on the mining fields or on the fisherman's boat, or for riches beyond a person's wildest dreams. The arm or leg of an albino, according to some, holds the solution. It's the nightmare always at the back of the minds of many. Tale after tale, attack after attack, another innocent man, woman or child has fallen victim to gruesome attacks. And the demand for the albino body parts in Tanzania so high that tentacles of the trade have slithered deep into Kenya. It's mid-afternoon and we've just arrived in Mugoi village in Embu County to meet 12-year-old Ken Masharia. Our expectation is that we will find him outside playing with his age mates, but instead we meet a reclusive young boy milling around his grandfather. It is for good reason. Just a week before we got here, Ken had been through an ordeal that shattered his innocence and made him wary even of close relatives. He recounts to us with crystal clarity the events of the 9th of March 2013.
Nilitoka kanisani, halafu nyanya yangu alikuwa ameenda kanisani. Tukaachwa huku na aunti yangu. Tukiachwa na yeye, huyo anaitwa Tapi, akakunja akaniambia wamenunuliwa maembe. Wakinunuliwa maembe, na mimi nikaambia Suswa nipe hata mimi 10 yangu niende nikanunue. Nikaenda nikanunua, nikakaa hapo mguu nikaanza kukulia hapo. Halafu ango yangu wakaniita. Wakanichukua, wakaniweka kwa gari, wakinipiga. Wakiniweka kwa gari, wakanipeleka mpaka Kaletire wakiwa wamenifunga msipi. Halafu wakanivulisia ndawa. Halafu mimi nikapiga nduru tukiwa Kaletire, wakanitoa.
3 men well known to Ken, among them his uncle, attempted to kidnap Ken.
Walikuwa wananiambia wameenda kuniuza.
The shock of what was happening was brought home even more strongly by what his captors told him. Statements that have left Ken withdrawn and insecure.
Walikuwa wananiambia mimi ni milioni 3 na huyo mmoja ananiambia mama yangu ameweka milioni 3 kwa nyumba akikula sinda.
Ken is lucky to be alive, but neither he nor his family dare say that he is safe. Those who try to kidnap and sell Ken are free men, walking along the same path Ken does in the same neighborhood.
Wameenda Runyenje na wakawasiliwa na hatukuitwa kotini. Hapa wakinja wanatulingia ati kesi wamemaliza. Tukasindwa sasa wamemaliza namna gani?
More worrisome is that Ken's uncle was part of the trio, lives just a stone's throw away from them. Ken's life has changed. He no longer goes to school. His home is the only safe place.
Anaogopa akiona watu, anasema ndio wala wanaenda kumusha. Sasa ananiambia hata shuleni aendi. Hata so mimi nampeleka.
Akiona mtu mgeni anaanza kustuka. Anafikiri saa nyingine kulitumano.
According to the Albino Society of Kenya, the police have been reluctant to pursue the perpetrators.
Hata kuna watu wengine hakuwanjua. Akiwa hapo kwa hiyo town, walisema hapa wiko mamilioni na watu hawanjui.
Ken may may be lucky and still alive, but hundreds miles from Embu in Mombasa, Joseph Mzungu and his wife Amina are miserable parents. It has been 1 year since Joyce Mzungu, their firstborn girl, disappeared in mysterious circumstances. Amina Mzungu has albinism, Joyce, who disappeared as well. Her second-born daughter has partial albinism. In a tragic irony, Amina's ordeal began in March, the same month in which Ken was almost kidnapped, only a year earlier. It was March the 4th, 2012. She had attended a prayer service with her child at a local church in Bamburi.
Nikasema tu pengine ni vile amechelewa kwa sababu hiyo siku amekuja kuchelewa. Amekuja hapo saa 9 ndio akafanya hiyo maombi. Amekuja kupata kanisa naendelee. Unamwambia hivi anasema haya nenda kaketi uendelee tena na maombi alafu uendezeni nyumbani.
All this time, Amina assumed her 5-year-old girl was right next to her. Amina says she lost herself to the intensity of the prayers.
Sikufahamu kuwa niko na mtoto wako hapo ndani, hata sikuangalia. Nikajua tu ako hapo kwa sababu sika weda yake ya kutoka nje.
Little did she realize Joyce was not anywhere around her or even around the church.
Nikakatizia zile maombi, nikaangalia mtoto hapo ndani, nikamkosa. Nikadania pengine yako wapi? Ako nje. Nikaenda nikamwangalia huko nje, nikamkosa. Karudia pasta. Bwana nimeangalia mtoto na sikumuona. Anasema kwani mtoto anaweza kupotea ndani ya kanisa? Tutaweza kupotea ndani ya kanisa? Wacha kuwa na roho ya wasiwasi. So umetoka kwa maombi. Wewe nenda tu. Nenda huko nyumbani na mtoto utamkuta nyumbani.
Tulipokuwa kwa line akaombewa. Sasa cha kushangaza sasa kuombewa kumaliza kutizama mwana. Mtoto hayuko.
A strange response from the pastor set alarm bells off in her head. He didn't seem the slightest bit perturbed by the disappearance of Amina's daughter.
Mbona mtoto hayuko? Nikamrudia tena pastor, nikampata tena yuko hapo. Nikamwambia basi nimeenda nyumbani na mtoto hayuko. Nini mbaya pastor? Na kila mmoja hapa ametoka na mtoto wake. Anasema wewe vile umemkosa, toka nje, keti hapo kwa jiwe na mtoto atakuja hapo kwa miguu yako. Naambia kwani amekuwa shetani?
Wewe uwe na imani na uombe Mungu, mtoto utampata. Sikia pastor vile alisema.
12 hours went by and Joyce has not been found. The news of her disappearance became the talk of Bamburi.
Right now what we have is a missing child. And the evidence we shall have, it can turn to anything. So it can be the theft of the child or child trafficking.
Tangaza msikitini, polisi, tukapiga ripoti kwa chifu.
All the claims of responsibility for Joyce's disappearance began pointing towards this man, Pastor Paul Mwangi. According to the family of the missing child, when he was confronted, Pastor Mwangi told them to travel to a small town, Taru, and collect their child there. Perhaps a little too trustingly, they abided by the pastor's words.
Akazima simu usiku wote. Paka nafika saa 8 usiku nikampigia. Nikampata. Anasema wewe rauko kuje Taru, uje uchukue mtoto wako.
Kulingana na maongezi yake, ndio ilizidi kwanza kutia watu uchungu. Mara anawaita wazazi anasema njoo nimchukue mtoto.
But trust in Pastor Mwangi, according to their version of events, proved to be an even worse move, taking them even further away from their child. They recorded statements at the Bamburi police station in Mombasa, but the police were curiously slow to act.
Pastor mkubwa na pastor mdogo, si hao watu wawili walikuwa takana wawe ndani kulingana na kesi. Ikawa vipi mpaka sasa hawa watu wako free?
Wakati alipopata hii hasara ya kupotelewa ni mtoto, wale wa mama wale waliokuwa wakimtembelea wakati wakimtongoza aende kanisani, mbona hawakumtembelea kuja kumwambia mama pole? Kuna watu walikuja kutaka kumchukua. Ni kweli, watu walikuja kweli wakataka kumchukua. Na ni huyo pastor, sijui alikuwa ndo anataka kuzimisha hii kesi iwe akimchukua huyo mama kwa vile ni albino awe ndio ameukata chambelecho na wenyewe akisema albino ni utajiri.
As anger began to boil over, the pastor whom they believed could have been responsible was a free man. It wasn't long before irate residents took the burning rage inside of them out on Pastor Mwangi's church.
Tarehe 3 siku ya wanawake duniani, yeye ndo alikuwa ameahidi kumleta mtoto saa 7 kanisani. Uzuri ni kwamba hiyo siku tulikuwa na maofisa wa kwa DC hapa, maofisa wa Bamburi Police Station, hata OCPD siku hiyo tulikuwa naye. Ilipofika mwendo wa saa 7:30 alipigiwa simu pastor na OCPD, mimi nikiona hivi. Pastor akasema apewe dakika 10 atakuwa amefika hapo kanisani. Ilipofika na dakika 20 anapigiwa simu, pastor akawa ndo amefunga simu na ndio kumbe haji. Ika saa 9 pastor haji. Raia wakamua kuchoma ndio kama pastor kuja aje. Ama aidha alete huyo mtoto ama aje atuelezee mtoto tumpata lini. Lakini ikawa ndio ni basi.
All they had now were ashes. No sign of the pastor and no sign of little Joyce. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and now a year has gone by since her disappearance. We sought the elusive Pastor Paul Mwangi in search of truth, or at least his own version of what happened. We found out that he had set up another church in Taru. He is a famous man here, so locating the church wasn't a difficult task. Sunday, 10 a.m., 21st April 2013. We park our vehicle outside his church. A Sunday service was about to begin. As worshippers streaming, a few curious ones ask us why we were there. We tell them that we want to see Pastor Mwangi. That's a message that must have got to the pastor's ears, because at least 2 hours later, the service has yet to begin, and Pastor Mwangi is nowhere to be seen. A few minutes past noon, armed police officers led by Taru's OCS arrive. Immediately, we are ordered to identify ourselves and to drive to Taru police station. At the police station, we were told by the OCS that Pastor Mwangi had called him saying there were terrorists in his church. We tell him why we came to Taru and ask him about the disappearance of Joyce Mzungu. Joyce's parents had, after all, came to Taru on the advice of Pastor Mwangi and say they made their case known to the police here. The officer denies any knowledge of this case and directs us back to Pastor Mwangi. We finally meet the pastor, and after identifying ourselves as journalists, begin with our questions about his alleged involvement in the disappearance of 5-year-old Joyce Mzungu. Unperturbed by the allegations, Pastor Mwangi admits he is aware of the case, but he was not behind it.
Wazazi wakaenda, yani watu wote walio kanisani wakaondoka wakarudi manyumbani. Lakini yule mamake huyo mtoto alirudi akasema mtoto wake amepotea.
Pastor Mwangi has been mentioned adversely by almost everyone who knows of Joyce's disappearance, but he seems rather relaxed.
Mimi nina watoto wangu ambao ninafaa kuwalinda. Sasa yeye naye alifaa achunge watoto wake, na mimi habari ya watoto kama ni kuondoka na mtoto si watu wangeona kwa kanisa, na hao wote walikuweko.
Did he ever get back to Mzungu's family and find if they ever got their child?
Kile ninachojua ni kwamba mimi kazi yangu ni ya kuhubiri, lakini wazazi ama watu wanaokuja kanisani kazi yao ni ya kuchunga watoto kama wako na watoto.
Pastor Mwangi decides to shift the blame off himself. He tells us to look for a man by the name Yeri Kobe, who he claims is his friend, and the man who brought Pastor Mwangi the piece of land where the church in Bamburi stood. The same man went on to buy Pastor Mwangi a car worth 1.3 million shillings. According to Pastor Mwangi, he could give us crucial information about Joyce's disappearance. But Pastor Mwangi is not willing to give us this man's contact, neither to expose where we can get him. He actually claims they are no longer in touch and he doesn't know where he lives. If the pastor knows nothing about Joyce's disappearance, how is it that he is certain about his friend Yarikobe's knowledge of the same? Did he report this to the police? Mwangi's denials go even further, disputing Amina's claims that he prayed for her specifically on the day Joyce disappeared. He gave us a DVD with what he alleged was the recording of the Sunday service during which Joyce disappeared. Pastor Mwangi says he gave this recording to the police.
Mimi sikuombea huyo mama. Watu wanaombewa wakiwa kwa viti vyao. Watu waliombewa wakiwa kwa viti vyao. Wakaponywa.
System ya kuombewa mmoja ama sasa huyu alipokuwa kwa line akaombewa.
Yeye ametoroka tu kwa vile hiyo mambo yamekuwa ni makali, lakini sasa hii anasemekana kwa hapo. Kila siku anahubiri hapo kwa nyumba yake kwa sababu ako na kanisa nyingine hapo kwa nyumba. Sasa anahubiri tu, hata hana shida. Anasema nashukuru Mungu kwa sababu nimekuwa ninafuatwa na kesi, lakini sasa hii kesi imeisha, nimekuwa tajiri.
With Mwangi claiming innocence over the matter, we decided to check with police. Here too, we got very curious answers. Former DCIO for Kisauni, Bernard Kigen, who the case was reported to, was transferred to Isiolo. The current DCIO for Kisauni, Shadrach Juma, claims the case was not handed over to him, and so the police are not carrying out any investigations. Is there any record of the statements made by Amina to the effect that her child went missing? Could the police know more than they are willing to attest to? Whom will Amina and her husband turn to in their search for their missing daughter? Is Joyce alive and well? Given little Joyce's albinism, this question may have an answer too terrible to contemplate. In 2012, Robinson, a young man with albinism, escaped death. His friends had their plans well laid to sell off Robinson to Tanzania. Officers at the Busia border rescued him after they realized the mission of the man who accompanied him. According to reports by Under the Same Sun, an international organization fighting for rights of persons with albinism, the first killing of a person with albinism in Kenya was in 2008. It was not reported to the public, but since then there has been a trail of unresolved deaths in the country. In the first ever prosecution done in Tanzania over the killings of persons with albinism, 2 Kenyan men were jailed for life in Tanzania. But even as all fingers point to Tanzania, that case may be evidence in itself that the business in body parts of persons with albinism is increasingly becoming part of illicit cross-border trade, as well as a business within Kenya's borders. The killings of persons with albinism, grave robberies and physical attacks are happening here. On 18th of April 2012, Dr. Pius Kamau was about to catch a flight from the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport when he witnessed an incident that got him concerned, one that he thought needed public attention. So he wrote to the executive director of Under the Same Sun, an organization fighting for the rights of persons with albinism. He wrote, "I write to tell you about my recent experience at the Kenyatta International Airport, which has left me devastated, confused, and certain about what to do, with hope that you perhaps can look into this and, if possible, save a life. I saw a 3-year-old African child with albinism in the company of 3 really disagreeable men who were arguing with the airline attendant about the child's lack of a passport on April 18th at about noon. They had come from Tanzania and were headed to Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. Eventually, they were allowed to fly off with the child." Under the Same Sun immediately wrote to the airline concerned. Emails by the chief executive to the airline that we managed to get indicate the 3 men and the child were allegedly boarding a Kenya Airways flight. The first email, dated the 4th of May 2012, inquired whether Kenya Airways had any knowledge of the incident raised by Dr. Kamau. It read, "Urgent, 3-year-old child possibly transported illegally on one of your flight." No response from KQ. Under the same Sun made a follow-up, this time round on the 9th of May 2012. The email read, "I'm writing to follow up on the matter. As you can see, I have yet to receive a single reply or email from anybody in your organization. I have emailed the Minister of Transportation in Kenya as well. Can you please provide me with an update as to exactly what has been done by Kenya Airways to this point?" This time, Under the Same Sun got a response from Kenya Airways. An officer named Hamana wrote back on the 10th May 2012. "Thank you for your email. Due to the sensitivity of the case, we request that you allow us time to get to the root. We understand the anxiety this whole mystery has caused. Our investigation team is handling the case, and once all the facts are displayed, you will be informed accordingly as soon as possible." May 15th, Under the Same Sun emailed Kenya Airways again. They emailed to the same Hamana Francisca and copied to other staff that Francisca had indicated. Due to the alarming lack of follow-up or concern on the part of Kenya Airways on this matter in possible human trafficking, I shall now proceed to begin a campaign of exposing this inaction to East African media going forward. To date, Kenya Airways has not communicated with Under the Same Sun. We decided to take up the matter. On May 2nd, 2013, I wrote to KQ informing them that I was following up the matter raised by the Under the Same Sun, as my colleague Saida Swale and I are following up on the case. Immediately, Kefa Moreno Bosire, Kenya Airways Corporate Communication Manager, got back to me. "Thank you for this inquiry. To enable us to find out more about this claim, can you please give us details of passengers involved, their names, including that of the child, date of travel, destination?" To note was that the email was also copied to Hamana Francisca, the person Under the Same Sun had communicated to and had promised that KQ was to look into the matter back in May 2012. We are yet to receive a response from the airline. Is the child still alive? Who was this child? Could this child be Joyce Mzungu, who disappeared on March 2012 in Mombasa, or just another innocent child? This case provides a strange but anecdotal trace to the sudden disappearances of persons with albinism. There is no truth to the belief that these people have magical powers. Yet, it is this belief that drives demand and is taken advantage of by unscrupulous opportunists. 10 a.m. 20th March 2012. It's a chilly day in Mombasa, and we are making our way to Tiwi in Ukunda for a meeting with a witch doctor. Witch doctors are widely believed to procure body parts for their spells. A myth, of course, but one that has tragic consequences to people with albinism.
In para!
But as with this business, we have to sacrifice something, and because we're inquiring about albino body parts, our sacrifice must be money. For start, he wants a 20 shillings going.
Fungua sasa. Ayona. Fungua sasa. Ayona.
And before we go directly to our topic of the day, introduction is necessary.
Hizi hutumika kwa wale watu wa majini. Watu wa majini ya pesa. Wanaotaka pesa, kuletewa pesa. Huko majini ukitengeneza mambo maalumu kwenye mizimu maalumu.
And with that, he says we need to offer a larger sacrifice. This time we need to give to the evil spirit 2,000 shillings. Now, this will be for only 10 minutes.
Na yule albino anatumika kwa ajili ya utajiri. Mtu anataka utajiri kwa jini wa pesa. Jini wa pesa anasema mimi niletee albino, mifupa albino. Ama albino pia anatumika kwa pesa ambazo zilizikwa zamani, kama zile pesa za Jerumani za Kaiser. Pahali ambapo pana majini ya pesa huwa anataka ile.
He goes on, we do not disrupt, so to save our 10 minutes.
Ndio sasa huwa ndio kazi ya yule mtu aliyezaliwa namna ile. Anazaliwa ambaye yule kuzaliwa kwake, mimba yake ilipatikana kwa njia ambayo yule bibi akumaliza siku zake za kawaida. Ndio huitwa nguchiro au huitwa albino. Ndio kazi ya nini albino. Kwa kazi nyingi zatumika katika albino kwa mambo ya majini. Huwa yaitwa kafara. Wanavitumia namna hiyo.
We interrupt to ask if he had used any medication that is made of albino body parts. He claims he has and needs some time to go collect it and show us.
Hii dawa tengenezwa na albino kidogo. Sasa hii huwa inatengeneza hii special ya mambo ya pesa.
The man shows us some black powder. He claims it has undergone processing with other things that the evil spirits request.
Aweka kidole hapo. Sema jini wa albino.
Jini wa albino.
Mimi nina shida. Na haja ya pesa. Nataka karatasi hii. Igeuke noti.
Igeuke pesa noti.
Shilingi 1000.
What this man is doing is false. He doesn't realize that we had marked the notes we had given him, and one of those notes is part of the one he claims to have made. An obvious question occurs to us. If this powder he makes is so potent, then why would he sell it for a song and stay poor? How does he get the body parts for his spells?
Hapa sisi tunao malibino ambao alikufa. Kama mimi huwa natumia mtu akufa kumfukuza jini.
He pays no heed to the respect one ought to have for human beings, whether dead or alive.
Kusumbua pia yule utajiri wake. Maana itabidi kila mwaka yeye anataka nini? Anataka sadaka ya albino. Mifupa ya albino kila mwaka. Na wewe utoe saa nyingine na wewe utoe pesa fulani. Katika zile pesa utakuwa unazipata uzitengenezea kafara.
The gory stories of how these false beliefs end up in murder are many in Tanzania, like one particular tragic incident in which a young girl was murdered, her killers making away with her legs hacked off. Inevitable that the trade would spread from Tanzania to Kenya, and getting body parts across the border may be easier than you think. There are several border points between Kenya and Tanzania, official and some unofficial, and as traders in body parts would use the latter, we find one and test for ourselves just how easy it could be to transport contraband items. We leave Mombasa a few minutes past 10 a.m. Our destination is Jasini, a village on the Kenya-Tanzania border. After about 40 minutes, we arrive in Vanga, a small Kenyan coastal town. There is a Department of Immigration here. Residents here tell us among them are Tanzanian nationals, and getting to Tanzania will only take us around 10 minutes. And so we decide to proceed to Tanzania. After a short ride, we get to this barrier ran by a resident here. We pay 60 shillings to cross into Tanzania. After crossing this bridge, we are in Tanzania, and in 2 minutes, we are in Jasini. It has taken us 1 hour 45 minutes to drive from Mombasa to Vanga, and only 10 minutes on a motorbike to get here. This is Jasini village, a village that sits at the border of Kenya and Tanzania, such that when I stretch my right hand, this is Kenya, And when I stretch my left hand, this is Tanzania. Residents here admit to living peacefully with each other, but it is a border town where anyone can cross from each of the country without any formal procedure being followed. In this village, trade is done in both currencies. Residents of Jasini have two village elders here, one representing the Kenyans and another representing the Tanzanians. The Kenyan village chairman tells us the government has left the responsibility of manning this border to residents.
Serikali imekiacha nyuma sana kimaendeleo. Imekwenda mpaka hao wakubwa wenyewe wanakuja wakati wa shida zao. Ikiwa wao wana shida kama wakati wa kampeni, na hali sisi kusema ukweli ndio washikadau sana huko. Au ndio tuliona matatizo mengi, au ndio tuliona ulinzi mwingi kwa kuisaidia serikali.
And they know just how porous this border point is.
Nilifuata mtu kuanzia hapa mpaka Mombasa. Nikamshika Mombasa yuko na silaha. Yes, kuchunga huko.
It is because of such borders that families of persons living with albinism are living in misery, in fear that their children could fall victim to attackers and be sold to neighboring Tanzania. In Kinango, Kwale County, a district that borders Tanzania, we meet families living in constant fear. Nyamvula Chichi has 10 children, 5 with albinism. Her neighbor, Umazi Rashid, Mama Mzungu, as she's commonly called here, is a mother of 2 children, 1 with albinism. But to them, parenthood hasn't been the blessing that most parents look forward to.
Kwa sababu sasa nimezaa mtoto, siku Tanzania nitazaa yeye, sasa nachekwa, nikaenda kliniki nachekwa, sasa hata nikasema afadhali nisizae kabisa.
Life is getting tougher by day as attackers get closer to them.
Sasa kuna wengine wanasema wewe uko na utajiri. Wewe uko na utajiri mwingi sana. Fadhali tu uchukue mmoja ukauze na utakuwa tajiri wa maisha yako. Na mimi nikamwambia chukua wewe ukauze, pesa pia ule wewe.
Wacha Tanzania mpaka huku tuliko. Siku moja nimekwenda kwa kesi ya hao watoto. Manake huku pia ni walinde hivyo hivyo. Manake ni pesa na hatujui ni pesa kivipi. Wenyewe kuwatafuta wanasema ni pesa, sisi tunaona ni wanadamu, kumbe wenyewe wanaona ni pesa. Sasa tunawalinda. Akitembea akija nyumbani mimi sitaki atembee usiku. Kulikuwa na mzee mmoja pale Kibandaongo. Akaketi hapo asema hawa watoto watu wanawachezea hawa watoto. Tanzania ni pesa. Mimi nikipata moja, nikipata mkono mmoja, nikipeleka Tanzania na jana magari hapa.
Their children route is manned. The schedule laid out, they have helped to start boarding at a facility built by donors to ensure their safety.
Ndio kitu cha uza kuku, mbuzi ndio wajisaidia nacho. Leo mwanadamu mtu akwambia ukauze upate utajiri. Nikashindwa. Nikamwambia mimi sina haja na utajiri na hawa.
The facility built in Kinango houses over 30 albinos, but it is safer here than it is at home. However, parents have to contribute from their pockets to hire a watchman, as the request to have a government armed police officer to guard the children has not been fulfilled yet.
Mimi ningependa serikali iwe na mkazo kuhusu albinos, kwa sababu watu wengi wao wanatishia. Sasa mimi nilikuwa naomba wawe security sana kwa albinos.
In 2009, Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete ordered a crackdown on witch doctors in the country. Then the country had recorded over 70 killings of persons with albinism, and many other measures were taken to curb crimes of color in Tanzania. We make our way to Shinyanga region. It is this region where majority cases of brutal killings in Tanzania have happened. a region where fishermen have been accused of using albino body parts allegedly to help them haul in a huge catch. It is said fishermen here are advised by witch doctors to place body parts of persons with albinism in their boats to bring them luck. Miners in Kahama region of Shinyanga also believe that if they use body parts of persons with albinism in their mining field, they will strike it rich. Shinyanga has made headlines globally over brutal killings and treatments on persons with albinism, with a recent case of a young boy who was allegedly chopped off his hand by his father. This even as the government intensifies search on perpetrators and providing security for persons with albinism. Such is the case at Shinyanga Primary School. This is a school housing over 200 children with albinism from across the Shinyanga region. This is their safe haven.
Walikuwa wanakusanywa, wengine tulienda kuwafanyia sisi wenyewe walimu, tuliondoka hapa baadhi walimu wote tukaenda huko vijijini kwenda kuwatafuta na kuwaleta.
It is here they call home, one after another. The tales not very different. Stories of how they were rescued from their homes where they are hunted for their body parts. They feel safe. Their hope for a future is secure.
Wanahofiwa sana kwa sababu sana sana imani za kishirikina. Wanafikiria kwamba ngozi yao inasaidia hasa katika wale wachimbaji wa madini.
The school program to house children with albinism was established at the height of killings of persons with albinism. The school is fully protected. A perimeter wall all around and a government security guard who mans the place 24 hours. Majority of these children may never see their homes again. They spend school holidays here, but all for their safety. Back in Kenya, there are a few schools like this, built by the government. One such school is in Kitui and another in Kinango, but they aren't as safe as those in Tanzania. Both of these institutions have no government police officers to man them. Kenya does not have laws put in place when it comes to protection of persons with albinism. There is hope, though, that the barbarism that comes with the murder of albinos will not seep even further into Kenya's psyche, and that those born as albinos may no longer feel like prisoners in their own skin. Reporting for KTN, I'm Angel Katusia.